You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask Marc Anything. And again, the format, I'm going to answer 3 questions that I've received and give you guys some value, some answers to these. Now, before we get started, I do want to say, check out the Facebook Live today with U.S. Congressman Mike Thompson. Great podcast episode. That'll actually be the video, and the actual audio episode will be live or on the air next week. It'll be Tuesday, right? Monday. So check it out. Make sure you're following the podcast. Subscribe. Follow me on Facebook. So let's get started with the questions.
What are your thoughts on parcel taxes? Are they a fair way to levy taxes on land?
So my short answer is yes and no. I mean, we had a really good podcast discussion with Denise Keys just yesterday on Highest and Best, where she pointed out a very good reason why parcel taxes are not good. Basically, if there's a parcel tax that's going to benefit certain people within the city, and not everyone within the city, but everyone's getting equally taxed on it, well, is that really fair? And then you have property owners that are being taxed, and many property owners may not even live within the actual city. And then the other thing you have to look at is, are the actual residents living in the city or living on that property really going to benefit from the additional parcel tax? So you can make an argument that no, it's not a really good or fair way to tax property owners in order to, use the money to build a library or whatever else you're going to use the money for. But then again, it's a very easy way to raise money and capital in order to fund certain projects. So that's a tough question. I think it really depends on the actual project itself, what the money's being used for, accountability, and are the property owners and the actual residents going to get any value directly from it?
If I have a lease on a commercial property and I want to sublease, with the landlord's permission, part of my space, but with different terms and maybe a higher rent, can I do that?
If your lease allows you to sublease it, most commercial leases are going to have some kind of clause in there that dictates whether you can lease or sublease, or whether you cannot sublease. Now, if you can sublease, most commercial agreements are going to state that the actual landlord has to review the sublease agreement and approve it prior to you confirming and signing off on that sublease. Otherwise, you're in violation of your own commercial lease. So check your lease agreement, see what it states. I always recommend reach out to the landlord and let them know. Now, where it's going to get a little funky is if you're able to lease out the property at a higher price than what you're paying. That might not be something that the landlord likes, but they may also not care if you're a stable tenant and you're going to be there long term. So look at the lease agreement and then start having that conversation with the landlord.
I was recently told that I should make a non-contingent offer in this competitive Bay Area market, and that as long as I have a pre-underwritten loan, then my offer is as good as cash. Is that true?
No. So just because... So right now, it's a very competitive housing market in the Bay Area. Many, many buyers are tempted to go out and make non-contingent offers because it makes their offer that much better. Now, sellers are willing to go with a non-contingent offer over an offer that may have an inspection or an appraisal or a loan contingency in place. The reason why is because if the buyer cannot perform, then the buyer can lose 3% of their deposit, they can lose their deposit or up to 3% of the purchase price. In some cases, they can even lose more. So it's a risk as a buyer when you remove contingencies going into a purchase. Now, just because you have a loan that's pre-underwritten or a pre-approval or a desktop underwriting approval, just because you have that does not mean you're your loan is as good as cash. Things can happen throughout a transaction. So I never recommend my clients to make an offer without the loan contingency or with the loan contingency removed. Never recommend it. But I do have clients that want to do that. So if you want to do it, that's fine, but just understand the risk. And the risk is if you cannot perform, you will lose your deposit. I just had a recent case where I represented the seller on the listing end where the buyer came in, no contingencies, everything removed. Great. Transaction was great for 25 days. There was a small delay. It got pushed out 2 weeks. Guess what? Buyer couldn't perform and close. We ended up taking their $18,000 deposit. So then we put it back on the market and got another buyer that closed. So just because you have a lender that tells you, yeah, we think you're a solid buyer, you're good to go, and you have a pre-approval or desktop underwriting approval already in place, that doesn't mean anything because the entire loan file has to be reviewed by the underwriter at the bank giving the loan, and it's their ultimate say of what they want. They may somehow find the disclosures to the property, and then in the disclosures, there's a termite report reference, and then they want a copy of the termite report, and then they want all that termite repairs to be fixed and repaired prior to closing. Now you got a problem because you may have a seller that says, no, we're not going to make the repairs because we can just sell it to someone else. Or if you can't perform because you can't get the loan, now you're scrambling last minute to get a different loan, and seller's not going to budge because they'll just let you default on the purchase agreement, take your deposit, and sell it to someone else, and they just made a little bit of extra money. So again, there's always something that can pop up in a transaction. I never recommend it. So if you are a buyer that will submit a non-contingent offer, make sure you understand the risks and be willing to put up the deposit if or lose the deposit if you want to do that.